So one of the interesting things about any opportunistic, whatever it might be a virus, it might be, any kind of an illness that you might catch. The big argument has always been the terrain versus the germ. Okay, so this goes back to the days of Louis Pasteur, and there was a contemporary of his by the name of Antoine Béchamp, and Louis Pasteur argued for, we identified the germ, so now all we have to do is come up with medicines such as penicillin to fight this germ. Antoine Béchamp said, who cares? Germ doesn't matter. Germ, schmerm. You need to keep the host, which is the person, healthy. And then the germ has much limited opportunity. And I'm going to argue today, my primary argument as to why this virus, COVID-19, or any virus, again, if any of you already know me, have listened to my diatribes or my arguments, I don't think it's that much. Is it significant to a certain extent? Does it have the significance people say, not even close, not even close. If our attention had not been drawn to this, in fact, we know now that this was around months before it was actually actually called COVID-19. And people were getting it and getting over it. And wow, that was really something. My husband and I, we were down for 2 weeks, and man, I don't know what that was. We were coughing, things like that. And you've probably all heard stories like that. We know that COVID-19 was around before it was officially made publicly introduced to us in the media. What we've seen is areas that are particularly hard hit are areas, metropolitan areas, where you have a lot of pollution. We've talked about that. We've talked about glyphosate, which is basically, your big Roundup type. Hey there, you two, Mr. Mirzuf and Gerhardt.
Hi there.
Hi. So we know that we've seen certain areas of the population, whether it be the United States or the world, where things have converged and happened around the same time. One thing I'm going to just mention is the roll out of 5G technology. So 5G technology is really ramping up the electromagnetic field radiation from what we're used to, even in our very EMF polluted world as it is now. So we see those areas in the Boston area, in New York, in New Orleans, in California, Los Angeles, things like that. We saw a lot of that. In Wuhan, they rolled out 5G right at the same time they give their flu shot. And the flu shot contains aluminum sulfate. And Dr. Trying to think of his name, oh goodness, Robert Young was a guest. He's world-renowned, was a guest on my radio program a few months ago, and pointed out that aluminum sulfate, when that's in your body, it's a direct magnet for 5G radiation. We know that 5G radiation deals with what are called something lectin, proteins. There are these proteins in the lungs. Okay, so we have really so much going on here in what we would call sudden acute respiratory syndrome, symptoms of the kinds we find in advanced cases of what we are calling COVID-19. One of the biggest problems is that our population today in the year 2020, especially our elderly population, and I would like to point out Gerhardt Betting here, our fine specimen of a man approaching 92 years old who takes care of his health, who's very proactive. He's used natural, he pays attention to his nutrition. He's been through some, I'm not gonna share secrets, but he's been through some challenges, some significant health challenges, and yet, he takes care of himself. We have a lot of people who are Gerhardt's age and younger, who are in either assisted living facilities or nursing homes where what they eat, where the food comes from, how it's prepared, what they're allowed to use for nutritional supplements is very much controlled. You're going to see, as I share my screen, as we go down, some of the key nutrients, and I'll be going through them, that are missing in, that are shown to be significant factors for contracting COVID and having particularly bad case, include vitamin D, vitamin C, the trace minerals zinc and selenium, iodine, another very important mineral. We have these tripeptides, glutathione, huge antioxidant capacity. We're going to talk about how these types of things and melatonin are being used, and I've seen them arrest acute SARS. Both times I've had occasion to use them. Instantly, you can turn off a very severe case of COVID-19 if you just know how. But let's go back and see what's happening to our elderly population. We have, I'll say here, malnutrition in our modern day in the Western world is much more common than we might think it is. When a pathogenic invader such as a new virus appears on the scene, poor nutritional status becomes evident, and those at the bottom of the nutritional totem pole succumb much more easily. This is the exact population that we see being hit the hardest. I know this because thankfully we were able to, both my parents and my husband's dad, we were able to care for outside of a nursing home type environment. My elderly mother-in-law did spend a few years in that kind of care. And so I can tell you firsthand what a tray of food coming out to a resident looks like. I can tell you that it's nuked. I can tell you that the beverages that are served in hospitals and in nursing facilities, institutional type care, are sodas, and for our diabetics, we're using NutraSweet, aspartame, and these horrible things. What I'm saying to you is that we have unhealthy population in our nursing homes, a very unhealthy population. I say consider our elderly population and a day of convenience foods, microwave cooking of pre-prepared processed foods. And you could say, what's wrong with a microwave? It's so convenient. Well, microwave technology was invented to destroy the genetic structure of substances so that they could be manipulated. At one point in time, the Soviet Union actually forbid microwave cooking. Interesting, because of that factor. So when we cook food by microwave technology, we are reversing, the heat is produced by reversing polarity of the molecules of the food in this heat, and it totally changes the structure of that food. So it's really criminal. You go out and you spend great, really, top dollar, say you're very careful about not having antibiotics and hormones in your dairy and your meat and poultry and things, or you're getting the wild caught fish, being very careful, not getting your organic vegetables, and you stick them in the microwave, and you have totally changed their nutrient dynamic. In fact, it's been shown that just heating cereals in the microwave with milk will increase stress response in the body. Because the body doesn't know how to handle these foods. So, but who doesn't use a microwave? I mean, my grandmother had like 6 kids in the deep South. There was no electricity when she was raising her kids. There was no air conditioning, nothing. It was brutal. And when, Sara Lee came out with frozen food, she got herself a microwave and sat down in her easy chair and spent the rest of her life watching soap operas and eating microwave food. She's a wonderful cook too. So we have slowly but surely over decades, our food supply, the average Western American diet is woefully inadequate to support health. Why do we have so many chronic degenerative disease conditions. Why do so many people have diabetes, heart disease, cancer, lung disease? These are things that they happen gradually. But guess what else is happening gradually? That immune system isn't kicking in. And so what do we do for that? We don't say, let's strengthen the immune systems of our population. Let's just vaccinate them, right? We'll vaccinate them. It's much more lucrative. We can prove to them they need vaccines because otherwise they're going to get the flu or pneumonia. We don't want that. So I say here, again, microwave cooking, I would venture to say that the majority of the elderly in this country are hanging onto their lives by a nutritional thread to begin with. Most of them have 2 or more chronic degenerative diseases or conditions, and I think that's being conservative. These are typically managed with medications. It is not uncommon for seniors to be taking a long daily list of prescription drugs, sometimes up to 10 and beyond. I've seen that. I see people with much more frequently with less, because I preach to the choir. The people who seek me out are people who don't want to go the medication route. So they might be on 2, 3, 4, but not usually the list that you're going to see among your general population, and especially as a person gets older. So when an elderly person is considered to need some help with nutrition, the standard recommendations are canned nutritional supplements such as Boost or Ensure. These are nothing but high-calorie sources of junk, such as high fructose corn syrup, inflammatory vegetable oils with some token synthetic vitamins thrown in to look good on the label. They're horrible. This just makes me weep. I have a lot of people being treated for cancer, and cancer people in mainstream, people with cancer are told it doesn't matter what you eat, just eat, because you're going through chemo and you don't have an appetite, so we don't want you to lose too much weight. So we want to make sure you're eating. So it doesn't matter, eat donuts, eat cake, eat ice cream, just eat. Oh my word, this I cannot even believe is given as medical advice. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here in this webinar that you all agree with me as well. It's bad, 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 bad. The corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup, so inflammatory, feeding as well cancers that use glucose as their fuel. When I say highly inflammatory oils, damaging the cardiovasculature, the arteries, causing inflammation throughout the body. Vegetable oils, right? So that's everything from canola to corn to just regular old vegetable oil, Wesson, you name it. These things are horrible. They're what we call polyunsaturated fats, which means they have many, many places for the fat to lock into. These go rancid very easily. In contrast to your good whole butter, coconut oil, animal lard. These are all maligned as horrible fats, but they are the fats your body and your brain need. And they last, they don't go bad because they don't have that, those things within them that go rancid so easily and cause wreak all kinds of havoc in your body and your brain. Goodness, it's I mean, we should be talking about this long before we ever talk about what COVID's doing to the elderly population. Okay, so, all right, so we get that. Okay, so now you've got, and I know what it's like. I've tried to do this with my clients when they have parents in nursing facility care or whatever. Can I get, some medium chain triglyceride oil, such as coconut oil, into my mother with dementia 3 times a day, Becky, like you say, will help her. Well, just try, because you're going to have to get that past a doctor. First, you're going to have to find a doctor to write a prescription for it. And most doctors aren't going to do that. I really want, my loved one to have this particular multivitamin. I want them to have a glutathione supplement every day. I want them to have this. You've got to be a pit bull to get in there and go after a doctor because you can't just bring these vitamins in. like to your loved one and say, oh, these are my mother's vitamins, supplements, and this is the schedule, and I'd like to see that she gets them. Oh, no, 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 no. They have now been removed from that type of care independently from you to managed care, which is all done through mainstream medical care, which looks to vaccinations and medications to manage health problems they can't turn around, which they really never do. They don't, there's no cure. You just hear, there's no cure for diabetes. There's no cure for this heart disease, except you just need these medications. So one of my longtime professional fantasies is being able to run an assisted living facility that barred all of those things and served good old-fashioned homemade food, no microwave, no aspartame, no booster and sure, no soda, fresh, locally grown foods, right? No pesticides, nutritional supplements of high quality, and targeted purposes that nourish the aging body and brain, that increase mitochondrial energy and youthful vitality. So just to get off onto the mitochondria, every older person, their mitochondrial energy is in the toilet. So mitochondria are the powerhouses of our cells. Around age 30, we start to make they are responsible for the production of adenosine triphosphate, otherwise known as cellular energy. Around age 30, we begin to make less cellular energy, and this is because our mitochondria are fewer, larger, and less efficient. So that has been called, scientifically, in the science realm, called the decline of life's energy, or dole. So this is why, as you get older, I used to go to the gym and, you know, I could do this many reps and my biceps were buff, and now it takes me twice that many. Or I used to be able to stack a cord of wood in half a day. Now it takes me half a week. This kind of thing, this is the decline of life's energy, and we use certain nutrients to forestall that process, to slow it down, or even to fill the gaps very nicely. This isn't happening for the majority of our elderly population, and it's not happening at all for those in, I call it institutional care. That sounds terrible. It sounds like they're in, the dark ages or something, but you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your nursing home, your assisted living, if you're at the level of needing assistance, that kind of thing. And unfortunately, most of our mainstream population today is also ill-informed when it comes to nutrition and what to eat and what is needed. So we're down there. Anyway, yeah, freshly grown foods. Staff would include functional medicine, healthcare providers dedicated to healing from the foundation up, rather than simply managing disease with polypharmacy. I mean, this is my fantasy. I've told other functional medicine healthcare practitioners, like some doctors, some compound pharmacists, who would be like, I would be with you in a heartbeat. We just have this vision for this wonderful, where it would be so cool if you could just take older people who are already, because most of them already, virtually all of them already are suffering with chronic disease, and get them into an environment like this. And also music and, just wonderful environments of social coming together and all this kind of stuff, and just give them no junk. I'm telling you right now, that would be an experiment to shake the world. But as it is now, our elderly are many times slowly killing themselves with the lifestyle choices they make. And in other cases, those are imposed. This can be through the government, what the government offers in the way of food assistance for those who need it. I'm talking about people on what we used to call them food stamps, right? But people on EBT cards. Try to take your EBT card and get yourself some organic salad greens or fruit, vegetables. Try to shop the periphery of the store for high quality real food with an EBT card. No, but you can get plenty of Hamburger Helper or whatever it is, you can get all those things that advertise and sell. That's what EBT, that's what our tax dollars are buying for people who need food security, who rely on the government. It's a crime. Okay, and then, yeah, and oh my goodness, if you visited somebody in the hospital for they're there for an extended stay or something, it is, my father-in-law would just want seltzer water. He just wanted some sparkly water, right? Something with some fizz. No, but we've got ginger ale. You can have diet or regular ginger ale, but we don't have just regular seltzer water. We don't have that. You see the trucks. We have across the street from my office here, we have it's a rehab center, Phoenix House. So they have live-in residents. And I see the food truck pull up every week and I'm thinking, oh my goodness. You know, you see them pull up to nursing homes, you see them pull up to the back of hospitals, and they are all in bed together. Madison Avenue, this grocery thing of pre-prepared, horrible foods that don't build health. And you can have as much sugar as you want, no matter what you've got, or if you've got diabetes in the hospital, it's terrible, you know. Okay, so the nutrients, I say, so what happens to nutrient deficient people when a new infectious agent starts circulating? What happens when the very nutrients that should be present within us are simply not there to begin with? Naturally, those people will succumb much more easily. Their health status is already at a point where they can be knocked over with a feather. The nutrients I discuss here for preventing and yes, even treating COVID-19, I'm right here to tell you COVID-19 is not hard. They don't want you to know that. They want you to think it's impossible until we save the world. Are all nutrients or endogenous substances such as glutathione and melatonin that should be present in much greater levels in the average human body? The elderly, again, are woefully depleted when it comes to these defenses. This is basically because they naturally stop producing them as time goes on and because they lack the basic nutrients that help them do that in the first place. Our modern healthcare and food industries have produced a sickly population here in the United States. When confronted with a challenging health situation such as COVID-19, these special interests continue to perpetuate the same misdirected pathway of prevention and treatment. These are hugely lucrative to their respective industries and is the reason they are the options of choice. Just try to get a good nutritional supplement, like I said, you know, good luck into a nursing facility, but don't refuse those yearly vaccinations. What? 2 pneumonia, shots, flu, shingles, et cetera, year after year after year. And all that aluminum mercury, it's really good for their brains, right? Wonder why there's an Alzheimer's epidemic. We use vaccinations in an effort to prevent illnesses that our bodies, if well nourished, would easily be able to fight off or handle on their own. The vaccinations also interfere with normal immune system function and further weaken the individual's natural defenses. So enter COVID-19 into this scene. The key nutrients that are preventive of infection and that cool off the storm when infection is present are the very nutrients woefully deficient in the population I described above. While generally speaking, the elderly have it the toughest here. A large percentage of our population, as I was saying, of all ages do not have the nutritional stores and daily intake of nutrients for vibrant, resilient health. So we're going to talk about those. I do want to go to, I thought this was very interesting. Nutrients for COVID, general nutritional status. People think about general nutritional status. I've always thought of it more with as it pertains to, you know, your ability to fight something off, right? Your immune system. It says here, the emergence of new infectious diseases and old diseases with new pathogenic properties is a burgeoning worldwide problem. Severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS, and acquired immunodeficiency syndrome are just two of the most widely reported recent emerging infectious diseases. What are the factors that contribute to the rapid evolution of viral species? Blah, 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 various hypotheses, agricultural practices, climate changes, rainforest clearing, or air travel. However, the nutritional status of the host until recently has not been considered a contributing factor to the emergence of infectious disease. That's really astounding when you think about it, when you actually think about how back in the day of Louis Pasteur and Antoine Béchamp, the homeopaths, okay, even moving on beyond that, up until the early 1900s, hundreds in the United States, when homeopathy was really, and the eclectics were the main source of medical care, and very successful until the Rockefellers took that over and made the AMA our only legal system of healthcare in this country. They did that because of Rockefeller oil and petroleum medicines, petroleum products and medicines, and wanted to get the monopoly on that right from the get-go, and they sure have. What we're experiencing today, is directly related to what happened then. And this is nothing new. This has been an ongoing campaign to force us to let go of our freedom of choice when it comes to our health, and have available to us only those tools that the AMA, through its, well, for a better word, its prostitutes are peddling. But here we go. In this review, we've shown that host nutritional status can influence not only the host response to the pathogen, in other words, I get exposed, but I don't get it, but can also influence the genetic makeup of the viral genome. This latter finding markedly changes our concept of host pathogen interactions and creates a new paradigm for the study of such phenomena. In other words, our status, our nutritional status, has the potential to alter that viral expression within us when it interacts with us. This is huge. It's huge. I don't expect anything in the bigger picture to ever be done with it, but I never did. Those of us who do the kinds of things I do don't expect that in the big, but what we want is we want to empower and enable people like you and like us who want to take control of our health and also want to inform others so that there is as much kickback as possible, especially as we lose our ability to say yay or nay to dangerous interventions. Okay, so there's that. Come on. All right, so vitamin D. Vitamin D is a big one. We've seen that vitamin D actually is not a vitamin. It's just always been called a vitamin, excuse me. It's a hormone. We make vitamin D in our bodies when UVB rays from the sun, when we're outside without sunscreen on, and we have enough cholesterol in our bodies to make that happen, we make vitamin D that way. Okay, so what do you see wrong with that picture today? Right? Tell people stay out of the sun or slather yourself with sunscreen. Sunscreen, by the way, that contains all kinds of horrible stuff that gets into your system, including synthetic estrogens. So don't get out in the sun, put your big hat on and all of that kind of thing. And then don't let your cholesterol be above whatever Pfizer said. Pfizer, Big Pharma said is, I say Pfizer because Pfizer was the original manufacturer of Lipitor. Your statin drugs, because cholesterol, you can't have your cholesterol up there. Cholesterol is the lord and giver of life in the hormonal cascade. Without cholesterol, you're dead. Without enough of it, you are not well. Even so-called bad cholesterol, LDL, plays a huge role in the immune system, function of the immune system. So see people with low cholesterol have a much higher rate of cancer. When we see somebody's LDL cholesterol going up, we don't go, oh my goodness, let's just bring it down. We go, what's it telling us? Maybe you have an infection. When we see cholesterol rise in general, we say, you may have thyroid issues because cholesterol is very necessary for the proper functioning of thyroid hormone in the body, hormones. We might see that the person's under stress because the adrenal glands require cholesterol to make the stress hormone. So things like cholesterol is really a big clue as to what's going on in the body, but we don't know that it's actually harmful. that it causes a heart attack. We see a small correlation, 5% in those with heart attack and high cholesterol, and that's in men ages 30, in their 30s and 40s. And we see that correlation, and it's been postulated by an MD, PhD, who wrote, his name is Raskinov, who has written many books on this subject. Because men in that age group are under a lot of stress, they're building their families, they're building their careers, so their cholesterol is rising in order to help crank out the stress hormones from the adrenal glands. So it's not necessarily causative. It is a correlation that we see. Cholesterol has not been found to be a risk factor in heart disease for women at all. So here we are, we're taking the way the body was made. We're supposed to have cholesterol. The brain is a large part cholesterol. I think 6% of the brain is cholesterol. We need that. This is why when you get on those statin drugs, many people, their cognitive problems start to come in. People with darker skin have a harder time making vitamin D because of the pigment of their skin, right? Is acting like a sunscreen. It was very interesting when it came to COVID, the more severe cases, I saw some chart, the more severe cases were of vitamin D deficiency and correlating with the more severe cases of COVID were in the southern areas like Spain and areas that see more sun. You would think it would be just the opposite. In the Norwegian countries, those countries, the vitamin D deficiency was not nearly as bad. And I look at things like eating fish, right? Fish liver oil, things like that. But so it can be a little deceiving. So a lot of people also, I test people all the time for genes that have to do with this important process called methylation, which is how we make glutathione to begin with. And some of those genes are the vitamin D receptor genes, and in hundreds, maybe 500 people through the years I've tested, I have not seen one person without one of their vitamin D receptor genes defective to some extent. So we know that this is a big problem. On my vitamin D, I got to make sure I clip along here. On my vitamin D page, John Michael's going to put these up for me. I did not get these to him until last night, and it was just a matter of time, but he's so awesome. But you'll see my overview, and then he's going to link these individual pages. And then on these individual pages, you'll be able to go and open, come on you. Huh. All right, let's try this one. Oh, they're supposed to work. Huh. Oh, I don't know, but I think it's fine. I think it's my mouse, but anyway, you'll be able to go. I did do some highlights on the vitamin D page to reduce the risk of infection. And these are scientific studies, okay? So this isn't somebody's opinion. These are studies. It's recommended that people at risk of influenza and or COVID-19 consider taking 10,000 international units of vitamin D3 for a few weeks to rapidly raise concentrations, followed by 5,000 international units. The goal should be to raise what they measure when they do your vitamin D level above 40 to 60 nanograms. So yeah, a lot of people I see their vitamin D levels are 18, 20, not okay, not okay. And people are worried about vitamin D and being toxic. They actually have used 300 international units of vitamin D3 for people with severe arthritis daily, long-term, without side effects. The studies that showed toxicity of vitamin D were flawed. And that information is also available. So if you're saying, oh my goodness, I'm really worried about taking 5,000 every day, or Sue is in there. Yeah. Sorry, Allison. Sorry. Please do not worry. The main thing I say about that is you want to use vitamin K2 with it. And a lot of the supplements come with vitamin K2 combined. So K2 is a form of vitamin K. There are 3 forms that helps the vitamin D move the calcium that's supposed to get into your bones out of the soft tissues like the arteries, the brain, the bladder, the intestines, and move it in. So the only people that's contraindicated in are people on Coumadin, warfarin. If you're on Plavix or Eliquis or any of the other blood thinners, that doesn't work with the INR. Vitamin K is not a problem. So definitely want that. You don't need the more vitamin D, not necessarily more vitamin K. You want vitamin K2 to be around 100 micrograms a day, no matter how much vitamin D you're getting. But does vitamin D increase the severity of COVID? Yes, and especially when you see the inflammation. Okay, so vitamin D we're using number one for our immune systems, right? But also the severity, the cytokines and the thrombosis we see here. Thrombosis, remember the blood clotting they talk about in extreme SARS. The acute respiratory distress syndrome, inflammation. This is the cytokine storm. These are the main things we want to keep in our systems. But we don't have to have tons of it. We need to keep ourselves well nourished with them. But then, man, if something happens and somebody has, wow, I feel like I've got fever, dry cough, this might be COVID, take yourself a good whopping dose, because not only is it preventive, it's also a therapeutic to turn that cytokine storm around. Our study demonstrates an association between vitamin D deficiency and severity mortality of COVID-19. Optimizing vitamin D status to recommendations by national and international will certainly have benefits for bone health and potential benefits for COVID-19. There's a strong possible biological hypothesis and evolving epidemiological data supporting a role for vitamin D in COVID. So you can go back to more of that. And then we have vitamin C. Vitamin C is also very important. But vitamin C, let me talk about that. When they talk about vitamin C for COVID, like they used and are using and started using early on in China, intravenous vitamin C, that's very different than you taking vitamin C every day. Now, when you take vitamin C every day, you're going to increase your immune system. That's one role of vitamin C. When they're using this intravenously for patients with severe SARS, sudden acute respiratory syndrome, mimics altitude sickness. That's what COVID-19 manifests as in severe stages. It's working as a master antioxidant and master anti-inflammatory, not an immune system booster. And the only way you can really do that is intravenously, because vitamin C is very poorly absorbed orally into the cells of the body. We use liposomal forms because they're bound to a fat and are better absorbed, but here's the cool, wonderful, great news. You don't necessarily need vitamin C for that purpose. Why? Because we have glutathione and we have melatonin. And they're both the right form of glutathione, which I'll get into, very well absorbed orally, affordable. Nobody can tell you you need a prescription for it or you can't have it. You can have it and you can use it. And I've seen it turn around severe SARS instantly, twice, in the only 2 times I've had to use it. It works. So anyway, so vitamin C, great. I say like 1,000 to 5,000 international units daily, and a liposomal form is very good. Zinc is a trace, for your immune system and stuff. And zinc is a trace mineral that is found to be extremely low in the elderly population. That's why a lot of times they can't smell well, they can't taste well. That zinc thing, isn't that interesting? Because those are 2 signs that you've got COVID and not the flu, they say, is not being able to smell and taste certain things. One study was done based in India or something, so they used Indian foods, and the things that were hard to smell were peppermint and coconut oil. And so, but we see when people have, I can't taste anything any longer, you're an elderly person, the first thing I think of is your zinc is too low, right? So zinc, thing is, your elderly population none of them have enough zinc. Not you, Gerhard, I'm talking about like in your nursing homes and things, the things that where they say these are the high risk people, so we gotta not visit them, and we've got to not visit them and mask, and we've got to keep them in their rooms and not let them see another single soul for the rest of their lives because they might catch COVID. This is why they're catching COVID, right? give them some zinc, some vitamin D, some vitamin C, some selenium. Selenium is really amazing. Let me go to zinc really quick. Potential impact of zinc supplementation on COVID-19, pathogenesis. I don't know why this is not working, but I'll find out. Okay. Directly inhibits viral replication, balances the immune response during infectious diseases, respiratory infections, risk groups. And one of the things that was really interesting in here was changes in while increased intracellular zinc may include biological effects in both the host and the virus. We were talking about that earlier. Not just is it affecting you and how you respond, whether you actually contract it or resist it, but if you do contract it, your zinc status is going to help modify how that virus is expressed within you. So this is huge. We have so much more power than we think we do. This is why for people like us in the know, this is such a frustrating time we're in. It's so frustrating. And let me get rid of that. Let's see. Selenium is another one that's super important. Go back to my overview. Selenium. Selenium also works in the glutathione pathway. It raises P53, a tumor marker that women with the BRCA1 gene mutation who are more susceptible to cancer. It's because they've treated people with that mutation just with a moderate dose of selenium a day for 3 months and found their risk of cancer, their rate of chromosome breakdown, breakage and mutation comes right down to the control group, and it works through the glutathione pathway, raising what is known as P53, which is tumor suppressor. So this is huge. What I really liked about the selenium, if I'm not lying, what I think I saw was it having to do with, it talks about researchers identified link between COVID-19 and selenium. So you can blood clotting in selenium. That's one of the big things they're saying. This is like, and Dr. Robert Young explained that as the interstitial fluids becoming in the body, throughout the body, becoming acidified, and how these certain things that turn that off bring back the alkalinity and turn around the cytokine storm. But here we have, so not only is selenium fantastic for the immune system, but it also is working again when COVID SARS pathogenesis becomes advanced, and we have the and you have those things. So these things are not, they're not just to prevent it, right? But the thing is, you want to be using them to prevent. You'll likely never have it, but if you do, you just increase your dose. Now, selenium, we use in a trace amount. It's a trace mineral. I like 200 to 400 micrograms daily for people. Not more than that on a daily basis, but don't ask me if eating Brazil nuts, so many Brazil nuts a day will do it, because I have no idea. I wouldn't trust how many Brazil nuts I ate. How do I know? Iodine. Iodine is another very deficient nutrient. We find in iodine that povidone iodine, which is betadine, which is basically what they use in hospitals. Molecular iodine is a new frontline defense against COVID. The use of povidone iodine nasal spray and mouthwash during COVID pandemic may reduce infection and protect healthcare workers. UConn health researchers find a simple oral rinse can inactivate the COVID-19 virus. We make a nasal swab. We take coconut oil, which is antiviral, and we also take, and bacterial, we take, and we infuse it with olive leaf, which is, we use iodine, we add iodine to that. And this makes a really nice barrier, especially in the nose. We find that the virus kind of deals with the nose. I didn't do this necessarily for COVID. It's wonderful. It's always been wonderful for just fighting stuff, especially if you're on a plane where your nose gets dry and all that kind of stuff. But this has already been proven. when it comes to COVID. So, you know, I don't think I've ever heard, I may have just missed it, but David Muir, you know, on ABC Tonight or whatever it is. I don't think I've ever heard him talking about any of these things. Have you? Now we're getting to the really big guns, the glutathione. So glutathione, again, is a tripeptide made in all of our cells. Most of us don't make enough of it. Common genetic defects, which I have, and many, many people do impair. We need certain of the B vitamins, and they're cofactors in all of this too, the whole B complex and the right form, especially of certain ones like folate. But anyway, when we have all of that, we're making glutathione. Look at this. Now this was published, I'll tell you when it was published because I remember, I don't have it written here. It was published first in a European journal in April of this year, and then reprinted here in the United States in July. Endogenous, okay, that means, endogenous means what we make within ourselves. Exogenous means a supplement we take, right? Or anything we take from the outside. Endogenous deficiency of glutathione as the most likely cause of serious manifestations and death in COVID-19 patients. That's huge because older people are not making glutathione. They're making negligible. They did a study where they took older people living 100 to 105 years old, where they were getting, where they were living healthfully, right? Not on a ventilator or whatever, or life support. They're living healthfully, 100 to 105 years old. They measured their blood glutathione levels against your average 60 to 80-year-old. Much higher in this group of centenarians living well and healthfully. We used to not be able to just supplement glutathione because glutathione itself is destroyed by stomach acid. We used to just be able to use like N-acetylcysteine, and some of the things you're going to find in the glutathione information has to do with N-acetylcysteine, right? Because people didn't used to be able to just use glutathione, but now we can, which is great. But therapeutic blockade of inflammation and severe COVID-19 infection with intravenous N-acetylcysteine, how? By raising glutathione. Local doctor says COVID-19 patients notice results with glutathione. That's Dr. Richard Horowitz down in New York. He's done a ton of, he's famous for his work with Lyme disease, for which he uses glutathione. And there's a story about that that I could share with you, but I'm not going to because of time. But glutathione, now I had a woman, I have a client, she lives in New Bedford, Massachusetts, and back in April, she was diagnosed with COVID. Now I started working with her in the summer of 2019 because her daughter recommended me. She'd had cancer twice. She has pulmonary fibrosis. She has chronic asthma. She's on medications. She had just had surgery for cancer not long before she was diagnosed with COVID and was admitted to the ICU. And her daughter said, what do I do? I said, take in a bottle of glutathione and give her 1,200 milligrams, one whopping dose. And she did. And she walked out. The doctor said, I never thought you would leave here. And bear with me 1 second. I read this to so many people that I printed it. I think I have it here somewhere. Well, I won't take the time to look for it, but basically it's a short email. And she said, I'm doing well. This was in August. She said, I'm maintaining my O2 sats at 98%. While walking my dogs 3 miles a day, biking, gardening, swimming. Okay, so she's in her 70s. On X-ray, the doctors say my lungs look like those in the ICU and they don't understand why I'm doing so well. I had another woman out in West Keene who was diagnosed with COVID a few months ago. She had had a rough weekend. She called me on a Monday and we took out high-dose melatonin and glutathione to her. And I called her the very next morning and she said, I feel so much better. This will turn it around. We don't need any of this junk, any of these designer, expensive, remdesivir, all that kind of thing. Also, let's talk about hydroxychloroquine. The malaria, anti-malarial, the drug that's used commonly for rheumatoid arthritis, has been for years. Going back to the zinc, helps with the zinc to get the zinc inside the cells. This COVID was easily curable, and you know what? They know it. That's the really sickening thing is really, they do know that. But this is huge. So all you need to do is have this on hand.
Hey, Becky,
Yeah,
we are right at 1:57. I don't know what people's time things are, but maybe,
I'm just going to wrap up with melatonin,
okay,
and then I'm
good.
done. And
Take
then
a
we
few
can take
questions.
questions
Good.
for anybody who can hang.
Thank you.
Melatonin, we think of as being, so glutathione, dosing, I've got that. You're going to be able to see all this stuff on our website once John Michael deals with my mess and gets it up there. But melatonin as a potential adjuvant treatment. Okay, this article summarizes the likely benefits of melatonin in the attenuation of COVID-19 based on its putative pathogenesis. The recent outbreak of COVID-19, based on Again, a well-known anti-inflammatory and antioxidative molecule is protective against acute lung injury, acute respiratory distress syndrome caused by viral and other pathogens. Melatonin is effective in critical care patients by reducing vessel permeability, anxiety, sedation use, and improving sleeping quality as well. But what is it really doing? It's doing the same thing glutathione's doing. It's doing the same thing intravenous vitamin C is doing. It is immediately shutting off the inflammatory cytokine storm that is what causes the death. Why did ventilators not work? Because they don't do anything about that. They just artificially shove air in and out of your lungs, and it doesn't at all address the problem. COVID-19, even severe COVID-19, is a slam dunk to prevent and to treat if you only know how, and it's not hard. I rest my case.